Ladies and gentlemen, throw down your rakes, bring the shovel, because Terry Minkler and I are going to dig deep. And out of full disclosure, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to try to get the podcast award for 2025 as the most extensive, informative, and entertaining podcast for the whole year, because this is off the charts. Terry Minkler's been going, at the wondrous Gatesworth Manor, doing, instead of working out in the garage, he's working in his room, and he's come up with something that's very apropos. With the World Cup coming around, and in my way of 2 cents, he's going to talk about the Japanese way of playing soccer. And I thought of duty, honor, and country, that Japan is not an old ancient, it is, but it has changed, that it's given the best of what America promises or would like to aspire to. And this federation, this Japanese Federation, along with our great friend Tom Byer, ladies and gentlemen, Soccer Made at Home, that started it over there, that everything is coming to be where everybody who plays great soccer, it's not foreign to America. America-style soccer is right up there when it's done properly. And ladies and gentlemen, it's going to happen. I'm going to remain silent, and I'm going to let my friend and our number one guest at Wales Certified, he's in the Hall of Affinity, Terry Minkler, ladies and gentlemen.
I don't know if anybody heard me, but I've been laughing a little bit the whole time. Keep it kind of muffled. But for you to stay quiet, yeah, I'm laughing about that. That'll be and, Kevin, before we get started, and I've said this before, I need to say it almost every time. Kudos to you, not only for doing this podcast, but for building it up to what you built it up to be, and for having the types of guests and the width and depth of your interviews, far and wide, deep. And you said shovel. Shovel gets you much deeper than a rake does. Rake scratches the surface. Shovel gets down to the basic, to the roots. It's down to the root values. And if you could come out, a challenge for you would be to come up with your top 10, which would be really hard to do. You might start with the top 50 or something and whittle your way down. But you have had some incredible ones. I mean, I've listened to some and I go, oh my God, that's hard to beat. Then the next one comes along and that's hard to beat. You just seem to find a way to keep beating them, I tell you. So kudos to you. If you got a whole lot of time on your hands sometimes, you might go back through them and rate them and put them in rank order or something. But
wow,
500, so I don't know. That's going to be pretty hard to do. Is that right? Are you really approaching 500?
Well, I'm closer to 500 than 400.
So what are you? What? You're in the 400s, right?
Oh, yeah. I like 425.
Boy, it's getting there. Wow. I think I remember when we did number 1 and we did number 100.
Yeah. And then
400. Wow.
Yeah. And it's over 20,000 views. And then with other things, we've entertained and informed around 30,000 people since that Christmas of 23.
Where's it? Is it Finland? Is that where you have your international contact?
Not anymore, man. They kapoots. They went over to Singapore. I'm a big hit in Singapore. I get it. Yeah. My people, I guess when I mentioned them, they said, "Hey, get me out of here." I'm, the guy too close. Yeah, but we have, and my nephew lives down in San Antonio, and the situation is that I'm picking up steam down there in San Antonio, bro.
Yeah, well, Mike Mackel and my buddies down here with the USL team. Actually, he's in Dallas. I'm sorry, he's in Dallas.
Okay.
But Dallas, Club Dallas. I forgot what their name is, but he's got a USL team coming on board next year. He's got an administrative position with him.
Well, I'm not going to make blow any steam, but I want you to. You have led the way, Ranger. Is that I follow you, and I got these people, friends and blah blah boom blah blah blah. But in a real deep thing, if you weren't a part of it, I probably wouldn't be doing it. It's not the same without my buddy Terry Minkler.
So do I apologize or do I congratulate you? All the fans out there, do I apologize or congratulate? No, thanks, Kevin. I appreciate it. I remember back in the day when you were talking about it, I was very interested in wishing you well and hoping for the best. You've proven that you can take it and run with it. So good job. Good job. All right, so let's get into talking about the Japanese pathway to soccer. Under full disclosure, let me preface this by saying this is just what I've come upon over a period of time and doing a little bit of research. I am by no means anywhere close to knowing all there is to know about Japanese pathway development, but I know enough to get me interested, to keep me interested, and to find out more. So please don't take this as being the Bible, but maybe take it as you'd like to find out a little bit more yourself. So what is it about Japan that strikes my interest? Well, I think a little bit of it, if not a lot of it, has to do with having met Tom Byer over the years and to know his involvement. Tom's an American from up east in the New York area. Played soccer through the school systems here. Went over to Japan to play professionally in the J League. Got hooked up with Adidas over there as a spokesman and a sponsor. He was sponsored by Adidas and ran soccer camps and got hooked up with the Will Curver program of soccer where ball mastery was the essence. And in his own way, he started his own program we call it Soccer Starts at Home. The rest of the world calls it Football Starts at Home. But it's where he can take kids as young as 2 and 3 years old and keep them in a training environment at home with a parent, with a ball, all size ball, size 1 ball, and up to age 5 or 6 before they transfer over into a team version of soccer. Have them develop ball control, body control, ball mastery, and put them ahead of the game when they cross over. But he's also been very influential in the development of Japanese soccer. And I want to get into that. I want to start off just by giving a little bit of a skeleton outline of some dates and happenings that got Japan on the map. So it was 1964 was one of their first big moments. In the Olympics, they had an upset victory over Argentina.
Wow.
Prior to that, Japan didn't have much in the way of international soccer to talk about. 1993, they started their J League, like we started our MLS after the 94 World Cup. MLS started here in 96. The J League over there started in 93. And the J League has grown considerably and produced many, many players of quality over the years. 98 was the first time they qualified for a World Cup. 98 was the World Cup in France. In 2000, they deemed what they called their golden generation, which by, given the fact that they started the league in 93, qualified for the World Cup in 98, they now have some players that they think are pretty special and going to be able to compete internationally. Now, what they based their golden generation, the pathway on, was a strong technical development, tactical discipline, and did this through European coaches. And the technical part of it is if you watch Japan play, they are technically sound. They play clean, they play smooth, they play quick, they play under control. Tactical discipline, well, you can't think of a Japanese culture without discipline. It's highly structured discipline-wise. So it's the same way with the soccer program. They have the same kind of discipline that they do in life as they apply it to soccer as well. And the European coaches brought over their experience and their exposure and their training methods to add to the discipline and the structure of the Japanese culture. They played a possession style which focused on quick passing, movement off the ball, and positional awareness, all wrapped around two things: technical and tactical discipline, technical proficiency and tactical discipline. In 2019, fast forwarding now, they got to the Asian Cup finals. When you talk Asia, you're talking China and Japan and other significant countries over there. 2020, they win a bronze medal at the Olympics. In 2022 World Cup, the most recent one, they came out and beat Spain and Germany. So they came on strong and put the world on warning that they can take on Spain and Germany and come out with victories. Huge wins for them. As time developed, they became a cultural phenomenon where dedication, strategic planning, and a strong passion were their characteristics, or their key footnote ingredients. In the youth and the women, they haven't been lagging behind. The youth, U17, U20, U23 men have all progressed to world-class levels. Their women, U17, U20, and national teams have all also been extremely successful. So they've got the pathway more than just at the top. It's not a top-down program; it's a bottom-up program. Everything starts at the bottom and works its way up. Some of the key factors that contributed to these youth development was a structured player pathway. It wasn't a random thing. It was by design. It was clearly stated and rigidly enforced. No shortcuts. Everybody, went through the same programs. Emphasis on fundamentals. That's a tricky word, fundamentals, because we get a little bit tired of the fundamental part of it because we're always looking for more. But the essence is, it's not the more that makes the difference, it's the fundamentals that make the difference. How efficiently can you do the most basic things that need to be done? How quickly can you do them? And what can you do with them? And, those are two real important elements that get overlooked in fundamentals. They're nothing flashy. They're not spectacular. They really don't catch your eye until you see it over and over and over, player to player to player, and throughout the team. And it's like, okay, why can't the other team get the ball? Because of the technical proficiency that these players have on their fundamentals. And the fundamentals are really the basis of everything. When you get the shovel out, you get down to the deepest point you can go. That's fundamentals. And it's receive the ball, pass the ball, and then move off. Those are the basic fundamentals of the game. Receive, pass, and move. 1, 2, 3. Now, one interesting thing about the Japanese program, and we'll get on this as we continue on, is the integration of education. They're very, very big on educating and developing the whole person, not just the player. So their school systems become an important part of the pathway. From elementary school through high school, I'll talk about high school later as well, through the universities. And the last point is they've gained international exposure. And by that, I mean they're being reckoned as a powerful country in the soccer world. And their players, they're producing players that are now playing throughout the world outside of Japan and playing on high-level teams and becoming very established players that are in high demand. I mentioned Tom Byer earlier, and I'll mention him as we go on, but Tom Byer had a tremendous influence, and he's been over in Japan for close to 30 years now, I believe it is. And in the early days, he went around the country and provided camps for the kids in the clubs. And he's a smart businessman in doing this. He got sponsors that were nationally recognized sponsors that were willing to support his effort and gave him enough opportunity and support that he could do this. And as he did, he kept gaining more and more attention and notoriety, and with that came more sponsorship. And he got so big to the point that they had him on Saturday morning Japanese cartoons. He was in youth comic books. He had regular features in soccer magazines. Tom Byer was everywhere in Japan in soccer, and soccer mastery was what he was promoting. And his Soccer Starts at Home program was very instrumental because it did just what it said. Soccer starts at home. It started with the youngest kids, age 2 on up, a size 1 soccer ball, and it was a simple ball mastery. It wasn't kicking. He was never advocating kicking the ball. And, he probably would suggest the kids do it barefoot so they get the real feel of it. They're doing it in the home with a parent. They're getting parental approval, which is really important. They're building their own self-esteem. They're building a visual awareness of the body to the ball, the foot to the ball, and a spatial awareness. How to do all this in a confined area of space, and maintaining control of body and ball control while doing all that. But he started out doing that. Then he got into the schools, and they had programs in the schools. As the time has gone on, and now that there's been generations of kids that have gone through his program, he has had his fair share of graduates from his program that have become national team players for the Japanese national teams at all the different levels in both sections, male and female, both. So what's characteristic of Japan is that as they develop the player, they're developing the person as well. And in doing that, they place a lot of importance on values. And the values that they see most important are discipline, respect, humility, and responsibility. Those are the values that they're developing as they develop the player. It's interesting that, sidebar note, in some of my trips to Holland when we took groups over, Jan, my partner, Dutch partner, also had contacts in Japan. And there would be different times where he would have a Japanese group in country at the same time we were there. And the discipline was unbelievable from the Japanese kids. As they were doing an exercise, they were addressed by the coach. They would all bow to the coach, literally do a bow in terms of saying that was their way of saying, "I understand, I appreciate, and thank you." They would bow to him. So we were able to witness some of that training. We didn't play any games against them, but we did kind of train with them at times over the years. Otherwise, finishing up this quick segment on the youth development program, what their goals in developing the youth were to develop resilient youth. Resilience is a key quality. Resilience gives you that ability to bounce back and take setbacks in stride and continue to go on. They focus on team. It was a team-oriented approach. Teamwork, team play was crucially important. They always felt that the team was always going to be stronger than any individual, but at the same time, they wanted to develop all the individuals to make the team stronger as well. There's a constant drive to improve. They always wanted to get better, to constantly raise the bar, set the bar, raise the bar, set the bar, raise the bar, and they built everything on collective success, the success of the team versus the success of the individual player. The team was always first. The player was always part of the team. That kind of went hand in hand. So that's kind of a skeletal introduction. I want to get into a little bit more of the nuts and bolts of it. I try not to repeat myself too much as I go through this, because I already laid out a pretty good basis of their program. The topic that I resourced this from was Japan's secret to world-class soccer. If you want to research that, that's where I got this from. Some of the characteristics: calm, composed, relentless, intelligent. How about those words? Not based on academies, but more based about a third of the national team of Japan had no previous professional academy experience. They came out of schools. Their high school program in Japan is incredible. I mean, it's off the charts. It's a 12-month competition. How about that? 12 months. It's divided by different regions, areas of the country. They have the final in January. 48 teams, or 48 different regions compete to get the best team. The most recent championship in 2025 had 58,347 people in attendance. 58,000 for a high school championship. Oh my gosh, how about that one, huh? The nationwide, year-long competition. Oh boy, 58,000 people. So, what's distinctly Japanese in terms of their culture? Discipline, humility, tactical precision, building a soccer culture that mirrors the national character. Discipline, education, national characteristics. Education is part of their nuts and bolts. Japanese pathway. Before the J-League, remember 1993, J-League started. The university defined Japanese soccer. And the university had discipline and collective effort as their cornerstones. Their matches were a combination of academic contests and physical activity, the mind and the legs. Players trained like scholars with precision, structure, and reflection. Every part was pre-planned, every movement rehearsed. Soccer served as a form of education. The values were statements in Japanese life, which were study hard, work together, show respect, stay humble. I love that last one, humble. My goodness gracious. We have kind of gotten away from that. We replaced being humble with being a showman. You know, we need to show everybody that we did something very routine, but we have to act like it was the most spectacular thing that anybody ever did. it was just a routine thing you were supposed to do. So being humble, showing respect, being together, and studying hard. Those are their quality characteristics. University soccer was not just a sport, but it was a statement of identity. Games were played in harmony of peace and balance and unity. They built a soccer culture grounded on the same qualities that I said before: discipline, education, and national character. In the university, they were able to balance study and sport, which we know is true for us as well, which then creates a smarter, more complete person. In order to enhance their development after the war, World War II, companies, Mitsubishi, Toyota, Hitachi, some of the major companies got involved in the game and in sponsoring clubs, and they would hire the players as workers, and they would get them a salary as a worker, and then they would allow them to play on the team that their company sponsored. One of the more interesting things, kind of getting off base just a bit, but 2002, Japan and South Korea co-hosted the World Cup. And that was the year where South Korea got to the Final Four. South Korea was coached by a Dutchman named Guus Hiddink. And one of the things that he had to do was bring his Dutch coaching mentality, philosophy, background, and experience, and integrate that into the Japanese culture. And one of the big problems that he had was in Japanese society, there's a hierarchy. And it really was prevalent in sports as well as society. And the hierarchy was the older, more experienced people, the elders, if you will, always had priority in terms of anything that was going on. So in the team, the team was always formed from a hierarchical point of view. The older players, the more experienced players, would always have the first choice of play, even if a younger player was better. So one of the things that Hiddink did was he had to establish, without disrupting the culture, he had to establish a change. And he had to get them to identify and recognize and accept that younger players, in this case, were in some cases better than the older players, and they needed to have the opportunity to play in the first team. So he managed to do that. And anybody has a recollection of the 2002 World Cup, and I have a very vivid one, because what I remember when South Korea played was the stands was a constant, was a consistent scene of red. That was their team color. And the stands, they had home crowds were incredible. It's like one big massive, like a big banner, all in red. The whole stands were full of people dressed in red. It was very impressive. In the 60s, and I said earlier that one of their influences was European coaches. They had some Russian coaches that came over and started to integrate into their game and educate them into soccer. And the Russian coach had three comments. He said, number one, they're technically obedient. Number two, they're eager to learn. But here's a key one. This is number three. This is a key one. They were lacking in improvisation. In other words, they weren't very creative. They were more robotic. And that would be part of their culture and their discipline, to be ordered and orderly. So that was the thing. He says, in Japan, he says, obedience was an order, not a weakness. He had to work against that. Obedience can be used in a lot of different ways, right? So if you use it in a way that tactical discipline, then it's fine. But if you use it in a way that interferes with creativity and improvisation, then that's not so good. So there's issues there. Arsene Wenger went over there in '95, and he coached a club team over there. And his quotes were, they were the Japanese players technically perfect, but afraid to take initiative. He admired their discipline, but encouraged them to think for themselves. So this is still early in their developmental program. in the professional leagues, the J League had an identity and a belonging to a community, which supported them in very, very positive ways. So the community was big. Each community had a team. And that team was wholeheartedly supported by their community. One of the quotes came out that I got out of the article was one of the players said, maybe let him give up being Japanese just a little. I think that has to do with the improvisation and the being able to think for themselves, because they're so structured that they couldn't get past themselves. So one of their strengths in soccer would actually become one of their weaknesses. The first player of interest that they developed was a player named Nakato, N-A-K-A-T-O, Nakato. And he preferred individuality to conformity. He preferred talent to seniority. He was basically a player who was expected to play in a certain way, but was also one that was willing to buck the system a little bit. And his comment was, respect should be earned by merit, not by age. And that was a huge movement. It was probably one of the first truly outstanding players that they produced, stood up against that hierarchy and tried to open up the avenues for other players to follow him, and to do it by not conforming, by being more of an individual, and by being being better and being recognized for being better. So he was their first global star, played in England and Italy, and he was known because he challenged the system a little bit. Pathway in Europe, the pathway is pretty narrow. It's academy, first team, make it or break it. You don't make the first team around 17, you seem to not be heard of. You disappear. In Japan, the pathway is a little different. It's more open, and it's a little bit longer pathway, because the pathway goes from youth through the soccer starts at home, through the school system. Futsal is big in Europe, in Japan, to the high school, which you know now is 58,000 people attending the championship game is a major event. The university still dominates. And then from then, it's get into the academies, pro academies, and then work your way into the pro teams. So they have a definite pathway. It's a little bit different than in Europe, because you have athletics in the school system. It's completely in the club system. In Japan, they have it all throughout all the school system. Okay, let's see what's the next point. Japan's culture values balancing studies and sport. I mentioned that before. They don't produce overnight stars, but when they do, they produce fully developed stars. So they take more time to develop their players, because their pathway is different, and it's based on solid fundamentals, based on tactical discipline, and it's based on eagerness to learn and developing the whole person. So their system is built on patience. Boy, oh boy, that strikes a nerve. We got the Freddie Adu syndrome here. You find a 14 or 15-year-old kid that's pretty special, and you anoint it. Poor Freddie Adu, he became the highest paid player in the professional league in the U.S. at age 15, I think it was. Highest paid player at age 15. What a pressure that is to put on anybody. And poor kid after that, he never really made it anywhere. He'd been everywhere. I mean, the litany of teams that he's been with is long and lengthy, but the success that he's had is really short. I mean, he's had very little success. And maybe it's because he got pushed too soon. Maybe what was missing was patience, right? Maybe he didn't get the time to develop as a person as much as he was as a player. And in today's game, we see, Lamine Yamal from Spain and Barcelona, and there's more and more teenage players playing at high levels than I can ever remember before. And it's scary. You got to be careful not to rush those players along. Not so much from the soccer point of view, but the social point of view. what's the risk? What's the danger of these guys getting into positions where they are acclaimed for their play, but still have to be people? How does an 18-year-old like a Lamine Yamal deal with life as an 18-year-old outside of soccer? And how much does outside of soccer affect him as a person? It's a long way. It's a long fall from the top when you don't make it, or when the bottom falls out. There's a long history of those kinds of players that came in like gangbusters, especially a lot of the Brazilians that you heard so much about, and then all of a sudden, not anymore. But the bottom fell out. Do they have the idea, the understanding of how to balance those careers on the field and life off the field? That's the issue. And I think the Japanese, because of their delayed entry, if you will, into the upper level, prepare those young players better for those successes that they have later on. Kevin, you got anything to say? Let me just keep on going.
I'm taped around I got my mouth taped.
Okay. Okay. Here's the point that I noted out of the article was that the Japanese reward late developers. That's total contrary to Freddie Adu syndrome, isn't it?
Oh boy.
Reward late developers to prevent burnout. Wow. The essence of Japan soccer's evolution is education and professionalism combined with tradition and modern. Here's a word for you: modernity. That just means being modern. So their evolution is a balance between education and professionalism, tradition, which is old school, and new school, modernism. From the university, they get discipline and intellect. From the J League, they get pride and identity. And from the company teams, they get loyalty and unity. Wow, those are some qualities, isn't it? Discipline, and pride and identity, loyalty and unity, combined from school, league, and work. Wow.
Yeah.
That's a pathway right there. So, do they have conflicts between study and sport? Between tradition and ambition? Between discipline and creativity? That's an important issue right there, right? Study versus sport, tradition versus ambition, and discipline versus creativity. You know what the answer to that is, Kevin?
No.
Blend them all together. Find a balance. You don't have to pick one or the other. If you choose to pick one or the other, then you're going to miss out on one. The key is to find a way to blend all of those together and maintain a comfortable balance. It's kind of like what Goose Hiddink did with South Korea in the hierarchy. Instead of having the younger kids bow down to the older players, if the younger players were good enough, they played in place of the older players, as opposed to the culture which would have said, no, whether you're better or not doesn't matter. He's older. Older rules. So sometimes you got to be flexible and change things for the better. Change things for the better. Otherwise, if you don't do that, you just stay kind of in a quagmire where you're really there, but you're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
If you be there and go somewhere, you got to make some changes.
Wow.
And I think there's a lot of countries that are there, but they don't go anywhere.
Yeah.
They haven't taken the risk to make those changes. So it's like that Nakano, who was their first recognized star player. He said it's not conformity, it's individuality. It's not the usual things that we've done all along without questioning. Now it's time to question. Is it talent or is it seniority? Is it individuality or is it conformity? So he was willing to make those statements and make those changes. and in doing so, open up the door for others to follow. And now you have the balance of collective spirit within the team and individuality within the team, all in the collective, all coming together to form the best team that they can develop with some individual flash, but all based on the fundamentals, all based on solid fundamentals. Key to Japan's soccer success is not to shred the national character, but to perfect it.
Wow.
I think that's their key quality, right? Right. How can you? And this is all really, really intriguing to me, because how do you go about doing that? You don't want to sacrifice the things that are important, but you also want to make sure that they don't hold you back. And again, I'm going to go back to Goose hitting. He came in with a different idea that was countercultural, and he made such an impact in the country, in Korea, that the university there in South Korea established a course on leadership based on his principles.
Wow.
Goose hitting, a Dutch guy, had a course in South Korea devoted to him and his principles of leadership. That's amazing. That's how open you can be to change. Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. We get this lazy Susan, and it comes around, and, you're going to talk about me? Is that I'm very happy that I've been doing something that I didn't know what I was doing, but I'm doing something really good, is the 3-in-1 approach. That you got to have it all, bro. You can't go one, mind, body, and soul. Come on. And so the whole story is purpose. Doing something on purpose, with a purpose, for a purpose. And that this soccer, a.k.a. football, but I'm okay with calling it soccer, that we have this way that we need to be together, everybody that's involved in the soccer, to really get the American way. That name, it's, so we'll think about a new order of some sort. But the whole idea is that it is so magnificent that people from New York, Texas, California, Florida, St. Louis, Illinois, we play the game, the beautiful game, and each of us makes it more beautiful than what we found it. And P.S. in closing is that all those people in red, when they left the stadium, it was spotless. When they went to a bench, spotless. When they went to a locker room, spotless. That takes it to where you seen me on that field, and I left my magnificence on that field. I didn't go around making a meal out of it all over the place. Is that by doing something so simple, it simply is beautiful, man. And you've helped me along the way, and I can't wait to take this morsel by morsel and to get some, food for thought, so to speak.
Isn't it amazing, Kevin, how something so simple, like your little phrase, on purpose, with a purpose, for a purpose, can have such a complex and can be such a wide-ranging statement when you put it all together. That is so important, so special.
Yeah.
And that really hits the nail on the head. On purpose, with a purpose, for a purpose. Wow. Yeah. And to get back to the point you made about the Japanese, great example of respect and discipline, right? To leave something cleaner than when you got into it. So they literally clean up the whole section they're sitting in.
Yeah.
locker room. I mean, it's amazing. That shows respect again. It's discipline and respect all of that. Here's another line that I think is important about the Japanese development. It's not about copying Europe. It's about refining what was already there. Not just copy, but refine it. And what refine it means to put it on your terms, put it in your culture. It's kind of like in 2002, I went to Baltimore for National Soccer Coaches Convention, and I listened to a coach from Germany. His name was Eric Rothmuller. I still remember his name. And at the time, Germany wasn't doing very well at that time. In 2000, the European Championships were held in Holland and Belgium, and I got to go went to Holland for like 10 games during that competition. And the two worst teams by everybody's standards in that competition were England and Germany. Two worst teams. Tom Byer said, "We don't have a kid in Germany that can dribble around a cone anymore." That's how bad he said they were. And but this guy said, what we did after the 2000 championship, we decided that we needed to get better. So they took a look at themselves, and they got a handful of highly respected coaches. This is kind of like your point, too, that you're talking, one of your closing points about maybe the U.S. and all the different areas and stuff. So we took a number of our esteemed soccer people that everybody recognizes being the kind of people that you want to make decisions for you. And we got them together and we asked them to analyze our national team and our soccer program and what they thought was wrong with it and what needed to be done to improve it. And then we said, okay, let's identify the places in the world that are playing the best soccer right now. National team play and club level play. And let's go study those countries. Let's study what they're doing. And then let's come back together again and let's hash out everything that we learned. Let's take all the information that we've gathered and see how we can apply that and still maintain our culture. That was a critical thing that it did because this was like 2002, the guy was talking about this. And in 2006, started German reincarnation again in the World Cup. From 2006 on, the Germans have been a prominent team in every World Cup since. And in 2000, they were the worst team in the European Cup. So they made a big transition because they went out and they, first of all, analyzed themselves and found their weaknesses. They went out and studied what they thought were the better teams, programs, and approaches. And then they implemented that into what they thought would work within their culture. It's a 3-step process. And boy, did it work, They weren't full of themselves. They weren't blind to the fact that they needed to change. And they were open to wherever they needed to go to get it. And they sat down together and they worked it out. And Germany now has an incredible scouting network throughout the country to identify good players, and then a training program and a soccer curriculum that can help them develop those players into the best possible player they can have. There's a lot that goes into that. It's not a closed minded. It's not a fixed growth mentality where we are what we are. We're satisfied with it. We're good enough. And basically leave us alone because we're okay. It's not that way at all. So, let me talk a little bit about Tom Byer right now. Let me shift over to Tom Byer. Let's see, where do I start? Okay, in the 1980s, in Japan, soccer was behind baseball and sumo wrestling. 1980s. Needed someone with the foresight and ingenuity to transform soccer and develop a passion for soccer. It was a matter of getting short-term success and building that into long-term prosperity. Changing the course of Japanese soccer, elevated where it was on a par with baseball and sumo, and hopefully at some point raise it above those two.
Wow.
The Byer, born in 1960 in the Bronx in upstate New York, played high school ball, went to Ulster Community College, went to the University of Baltimore, then to the University of South Florida. Was the number one pick in the NASL. Played a year with the NASL, and then went over to Japan in 1986. So he's 26 years old. Goes to Japan. In 1980, Japan is in soccer, is still behind baseball and sumo. In 86, he plays for the Japanese team Hitachi. Remember, Hitachi was one of the companies that sponsored a team. So he played for them, retired in 1989, stayed in Japan in a coaching capacity, reached out to major Japanese companies to sponsor his coaching clinics. Nestle signed on, Adidas, Volkswagen, Coca-Cola, McDonald's, Domino's, and A1A all joined in with the sponsorship. So you see where Group 1, and it tells an interesting story how the first one happened. He just knew somebody that he didn't know at the time, but the person that he met, his father was a real high up with Nestle's company, and through social interaction with the one person, he got connected to the father and got to present his program, and the dad liked it, took his program on and sponsored it. He's kind of very incidental. All this stuff with Tom Byer was incidental. 1993, opened a soccer school, had 150 different school campuses involved, 20,000 plus students were involved. He met Paul Mariner, an English player, who introduced him to the Kerber methods. For 14 years, he did the Kerber method. Kerber method is the ball mastery stuff. It was popular for a while in the States, kind of drifted off after a while. 2008, developed some academies and got involved in different multimedia platforms. Did over 2,000 events. It was in contact with 500,000 children in soccer. 2008. So we go back in 1980 when everything was not so good. 2008, 28 years later, he's in front of 500,000 kids. That's amazing.
Wow.
Adidas gave Byer the Golden Boot Award for his grassroots effort. The only youth soccer coach to ever get one. His efforts, he turned good players into elite players and developed an elite pool that grew and grew and grew. And so he always says that if you want to improve your team, you've always got to improve the worst players first. If you improve the worst players, then there's less of a difference between your best and your least talented players. So work to improve the players that are at the bottom of the pool, and then you'll have a better team. And so he took good players and made them into elite players, and developed enough elite players to have a really strong pool. He got players from the J League, and then those players, some of those went to Europe. He says he finds very small differences between the J League and a lot of the European leagues. Whereas the American League, the MLS in Europe, he says he sees a huge difference in level of play between MLS in Europe, where he doesn't see the same difference between the J League in Europe. So I guess he's saying the J League looks like it rates higher than the MLS does. 2002, South Korea and Japan hosted a World Cup. He had a 2-minute TV show every Saturday morning on a kids' cartoon program. Reached out to 3 to 5 million kids every day. This program was on every day. And he went from April of '98 to December of 2010. So he had 12 years of being on TV with kids. 2 pages in a kid's comic book, 2 pages in a soccer digest. Now his book's out. He's got over 50,000 copies of his book sold, and he's got DVDs that he sold, about 20,000 DVDs. So this guy has been hugely influential. He now has been contacted worldwide. Even the U.S. is now taking a little bit of interest in his program. But he's in China, he's in Scotland, he's in Indonesia, He's here, there, and everywhere.
I'm sorry, Terry. I got up and it's it. We got 5 minutes left, man.
Okay, that's good. That's good. So, in summarizing, I think I said a lot today about the Japanese, but maybe it can be summarized into much less. It's a pathway that was patient. It was well thought out. It was very structured. It focused on technical abilities, technical discipline, passion, respect, humility, education. Their format was to develop the person as well as the player. Tom Byer was extremely influential in putting his program out and getting great response. As I said a minute ago, he was able to take good players and turn them into elite players. And so when you expand the pool of elite players, you're only going to have a better team, for sure.
Right. And
I
here we...
think that's pretty much it. So thanks for the opportunity for me to talk a little bit about the little bit I know about Japanese soccer.
Well, here it is. It all comes crystal clear about what we can do internationally, about the city team we have, and about the national championships in the future, St. Louis style. So that's my big thing, is shop local, baby. Shop local, let's get our style together, and let's play some ball. At PS in closing, there's no better player that I've seen in a long, long time than Matty DiMaria, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, but Kevin, and not to take anything away from Matty DiMaria, but there's only one Matty DiMaria.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because there's only one Matty DiMaria. There's only one Freddie Adu.
Yeah.
You only have one. That puts so much pressure on that one.
Okay.
What needs to happen is that there needs to be more Matty DiMarias.
Right on.
Our system is at fault for not producing more Matty DiMarias.
There you go. You heard it here at Wales Certified. And that's why you're a Wales Certified Hall of Affinity.
I thank you very kindly.
All right, then. So I'll get off, upload this, download it, and send it out to you, all right? It's going to go viral, baby. All right.
All right, thanks, Kevin.
Bye-bye.